The views expressed during this program are not necessarily those of Wise Q95 FM radio. Wise Q95 FM radio has not been able to independently verify the factual correctness or the allegations and statements made during the course of this program and cannot vouch for their accuracy. Therefore, Wise Q95 FM radio will not accept any responsibility or liability for the statements or allegations made in the course of this program.
All right, folks. Good evening, one and all. Yes, we are indeed at Q95 Radio for yet another program, yet another CCM program, Patriot Voices on Q. You know, there are several persons who does not know that that's the name of our program because we hardly ever even say it on air, but it's Patriot Voices on Q, and that is the CCM's program. All right, so we're happy to be here this evening, to the 27th day of December 2024. Just about 3-4 more days to go. There are about 4 days to end the year and then into a new year, 2025. Well, of course, the Roman New Year. That's another discussion by itself. January is really not the first month of the year, but like I said, that's another discussion all by itself. But we know that way, so let us go with it that way. January 1st is the New Year 2025. So let me welcome each and every one of you on board. Wherever you're listening from, be it from Capuchin, Maho, Portsmouth, Roseau, Lapointe, wherever you're listening from, we want to welcome you on our CCM's program this evening. Your host, that's me here, John Blanchard. Zai Emmanuel will not be in this evening. He's not feeling too well, so he couldn't make it this evening. And Washburn Coffee, the president, his phone is having some issues. So I'm not sure if he'll come in this evening because I could not call him to give him a reminder that we are on tonight. But nonetheless, we'll do what we have to do. We will link up with Zed Lloyd and Dion George probably by the 6:30 hour or before to have some discussion on electoral reform. So tonight, our sole topic is electoral reform. And most of will be looking at campaign financing, campaign finance reforms, and some of what Mr. Julian Johnson recommended a few years back, and that of Sir Dennis Byron and others. All right, so that's basically will be our discussion tonight. We hope that you are tuned in and ready and willing to listen to us, and of course to get some positive vibes from whatever we have to share with you this evening. All right, folks, without further ado, let us go straight into the President Worship session, about 5 minutes. We always welcome the midst of the good Lord in our midst before we do anything else. Then we'll have a roll call, and following the roll call, we will start the discussion. All right, so please take a listen at this time while I call my greetings list.
Down on my knees, I found my Jesus.
All right, folks, first and foremost on my list, of course, is my daughter, my princess, Imaya, and her mom, Ketika. And to May at Salisbury, Delbert Blanchard and his wife, in St. Martin, Auntie Martha, Bibia, Tyree Spitz, Jennifer Christopher, Brother Angelo Allen, Urban Long and family, Mr. Foy and family in Kulibistri, Rash Joseph, John, Mrs. Ernestine Pelty, Matt's mother, Miss Jennifer Xavier, you and your husband, the entire family, good evening to you guys. Mr. Christian in Puri, that's by the field bar, Rash Brigo, I put Michelle, Edith Francois, Tegasman, that's Jimbo, our dear brother Dorian. Also have Alistair Irish, that's a cool out man, cool out guy up there in Bath Estate. Good evening to you, partner. I know you are locked in and listening to the program. So with the Louis and your wife, good evening to you guys. Good evening, Kawi Blanchard, that's my brother. He too is locked in, Q95, big station. Tyrus Raphael from La Puette, who lives in the USA. Brother James and Daryl from Goodhope. The Lionel Laville. Martin John Baptist, aka Dog, La Puette again. Alison Pelty and Lover Girl in the Boston and New York area. Roy Tavernier, Sandra Smith and the daughter Cressida in the USA. Akela, Dana, Jessica, Noelle Michelle, Kalunda, Manu, all these guys from Tyree Spitz. We have our dear sister Judith Dover, Water Village area. We have CCM members, just to name a few: Susanna Rule, Maureen, Lou Robinson, Lofty, Earl Bruno, Dr. Dion George, Mary Bowie, Arundel Thomas, Bob Marley, Joel Joseph, just to name a few of them. A few again of our good doctors: Dr. Thompson Fountain, Dr. Dale Dangleben, Dr. Sam Christian, Dr. Irvin Pascal, Dr. Hazel Ricketts, Dr. Irvin Andre, Dr. Thomas in the Wesley area, Dr. Hendricks Paul. Good evening to you guys. Of course, there are many more doctors. So just name a few of the good doctors, of course. My friend Jill Woodman, Edith Abraham in the USA, Val Ferry at Port Michelle, Mindy on High Street, Timeless Queen, Vivi, that's our flower girl, true picture down there in the Rose area, selling the flowers and the plants and so on. Sally from Warner, Julian from Tyree Spit, our partner Morris from Citra, Sandra Sylvester, better known as Nissan, Robinson Charles of Campbell, better known as Small or Tiddly, Angel and Abigail in Marigot, Ivan Nicholas, Dion Philbert, Brian Linton, Tony Caesar and family Tola, our dear brother and member of CCM, David C. Joseph. Also have Ronald Marie, Merlin Bruno, Ivani Underwood, two sisters from Salisbury who lives in Georgia, USA. The Moon Service guys, Buju and others, Fafa, Marlo Anita. No, Marlo Anita is always locked in, sitting on the sofa right now in the drawing room and listening to us on Q95. Constant listener of all the programs, not just CCM programs, but all the programs. Agatha Samuel, better known as Carrot, the Bruno family in Port Michelle. Let me say good evening to you and hope everything's okay with you. You have Joan Frampton, Mapowa, Janice, Ohimia Bruno, Margreta, Craig, Tony in the Raven area at Lodbo. We have Bishop, yeah, for sure. I know Bishop is locked in. Good evening to you, partner. Philly Alan, Pape Pali, Blue and Lucille. Family members of Mr. Ralph Blackwell in Loda. Mona Louis, of course, the big pot lady up in the USA. Good evening to you. Nerika T. Jessica, my good old friend. Mr. Norman Chillingford, the African brother, which is Dorian Francis. Auntie Bessie, of course, I have to take a pause and say Auntie Bessie in Bath Estate. How are you doing, ma'am? I hope everything is fine with you and you had a good time over the Christmas season. By the way, did I call Auntie Bessie? No, I didn't call her. So I shall give you a call on the weekend, Auntie Bessie. Fano, Lister George, Zed Lloyd, Blessings, Michael Coppell, Mr. and Mrs. Ozzy Luis in Emstal. Good evening to you guys. I hope everything is okay with you and we pray for God's blessings and protection over the both of you. We have Tyron Theophile, that's a good cricketer in La Puette, Anthony Scotland, better known as Willie. We also have our nurses, doctors, lawyers, police officers, and say good evening to you guys as well. This is Desiree John. That's the wife of our former Prime Minister Patrick Roland John. Because how can we forget these people, eh? Dear to us. This Novadai Rumpel, you and your husband, let me say good evening to you guys, and we continue to call on the Prime Minister to pay your money, you and others up in the Wesley, the property up in the Wesley area. We hope that his good conscience will cause him to pay you in the new year. It is long overdue. Please pay the people the money. Normal New Jersey, Rachel in Good Hope and also Keith Matthew, We have Yolanda Rui and her mom Patricia, Adelaide Paul, Olivia Philogen from Collio, and of course all the other true patriots. Let me just say good evening to all of you guys and hope you have a blessed evening as you continue to listen to the program until the 8 o'clock hour. It's now 13 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. We are going to open up the lines for a short roll call for 4 to 5 minutes, and then for us to go straight into this evening's business, which is basically electoral reform. Of course, feel free if you want to call to make a point on any other topic, but we're going to concentrate tonight more or less on electoral reform. All right, so feel free to call in at this time. Numbers to call are 449 3095, 449 3096, 449 3097, 616 4257, overseas number 305 432 9624. The lines are open up. Feel free to call in at this time.
It wasn't on the mountain, not in a valley, but it was on my knees.
Good evening. Hello.
I'm hearing you. Can you hear me?
Oh, you hearing me? I wasn't hearing you, so I want just one.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I just called to say good night and to say hello and Happy New Year in advance to all who are listening to my voice this evening, from the north to the south to the east to the west. Right? Prosperous New Year to all.
Thank you very much.
I'm listening.
I will say Happy New Year to your Prime Minister as well.
What?
To your Prime Minister.
You lift me up. My heart is served.
Good evening, caller. You're right on cue.
I'm registering present.
You are present. All right, Lucille. Thank you.
Show me the way, Lord, lead me through. I trust in you in all I do. When I'm uncertain, you make me strong. Show me the way, Lord, to you I belong. Through every battle, through every fight, you are my courage, you are my I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, hold to the Lamb of Calvary. I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, and Jesus will hold on to me. In this troubled world we live in, nothing seems to make sense. Many looking for the way, searching to and fro. Sometimes this rope I'm holding seems to be slipping, but I'm gonna hold on tighter to the only hope I know. I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, hold to the Lamb of Calvary. I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, and Jesus will hold on to me. Old Satan keeps on talking, saying you can't make it, trying to convince me there's no use to try. but I refuse to listen and keep right on going.
While I remember, let me just extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of this young guy, we call him Benji from Rubia, who resided at Point Michelle. That's the guy who passed away in the accidents at Scott's Head a few days ago. Was it Wednesday? Today's Friday. Time goes so quickly. But it was Wednesday, Christmas Day. Yeah. So our condolences and sympathy to the family, and asking you guys to just hold on strong. All right.
Make sense. Many looking for the way, searching to and fro. Sometimes this rope I'm
And
holding.
of course, to all of the families who lost loved ones over the last week or so, couple of weeks, months, we do extend our condolences to you as well.
No, I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, hold to the Lamb of Calvary. I'm gonna hold on to Jesus. Jesus will hold on, hold on.
But having said that, I mean, this road where this guy died, I mean, that has been so since after Hurricane Maria. That's on the way between Soufriere and Scott said where the road was damaged and there's a diversion. I mean, it's sad to see, that the road is still in that condition and that big opening is still there afterwards. 2017, 7 years, 7.5 years. Palrep, if you are listening, please do something about it. We have had several accidents in that area. As recent as probably a month ago, a young lady and her boyfriend actually crashed on a bike right there. And now we are talking about the death of a young guy, just in his 40s, losing his life again in that same area. You need to do what you have to do as Palrep of the area. It's not just to get people to see and have Christmas parties and children's party, and distribute gifts and hams and turkey and so on. It's all well and good. I'm not saying these things are not good. They're all good. But look about the real interest of your constituency. All right. And I hope the people of Soufriere and Scott and Paul Michel, they're taking note of these things so they can, evaluate you on the performance when the time comes around.
Jesus and Jesus will hold on to me. In this troubled world we live in, nothing seems to make sense. Many looking for the way, searching to and fro. Sometimes this rope I'm holding seems to be slipping.
All right, folks, it's now 6:21, and Brother Zed Lloyd is already. You see him there, he's ready to go. And so we'll just link him up in just a minute. We'll have him to say a few words, all right?
I'm gonna hold on to Jesus, and Jesus will hold on.
All right, folks, since there are no more calls on the roll call, let me just invite Brother Zed Lloyd to the microphone. And like I said, he's always willing and able to be with us on a Friday evening. Whatever he has to do, he puts it aside and to be here with us to bring us some positive vibes, and to look at, and the whole issue of electoral reform and other topics as well as they become available. And so let me just welcome my brother, Zed Lloyd. Tonight, like I said earlier on, we are going to be discussing electoral reform, and we're going to put some concentration on what Mr. Julian Johnson had to say couple days, well, a few years ago, actually. So, Brother Zed Lloyd, welcome to Q95 Radio and the Hot Seat.
Yeah, good evening, brother. Good evening to the listeners. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, yes.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Nice to be here. It's winter up here. It's cold, but it's nice to be here. Nice to be with the people and to feel the vibes and to. I have a little issue tonight. Where is Zah and Zah there?
Okay, well, probably name earlier, but I made an announcement that Zah is not feeling too well, so he could not make it. I have not heard
I,
from Coffee And Coffee has some telephone issues. His phone is not working for a couple of months now, so there's no way I could contact him to remind him of the program tonight.
I know. I knew that I wasn't going to be feeling well, you know.
I know that. But Susan,
I warned him, you know.
well, I know for sure. I know for sure he's listening, eh?
Yeah, you have to listen to that. Yeah, I know. But he messing with the program right now because he had responsibilities for tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Joshua hasn't arrived there yet.
No, I've not seen him. You made contact with him because I was not even aware that he was coming tonight. But
Yeah. I mean,
what
I
he
sent
said
him
though.
some of the document. I sent him some of the documents to study. You know, and
Okay,
I myself, I did some homework on the documents and studied on my device, but I can't find my power cord, man.
okay.
It's like I'm like, man, you know, it's just that's why I was hoping that Zah, who had also sent some documents to, we're gonna spread the responsibility. You know, you've been busy at work, so I know I couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
you send me documents, I mean, I have a lunch break. When I look at 4 o'clock, and I could always go through. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So yeah, what
yeah,
I will do
and
now,
then
I'm going to give a little preamble and a little background of the whole electoral thing fiasco.
yeah,
After that, I would ask you to come in and make your
yeah,
contribution.
man,
Right?
yeah, man, yeah, man. We could build, yeah. All right.
Sure. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So at previous programs of CCM, we asked the question: what's the holdup with the much needed reforms, or rather, who or what is holding up the process? Okay. We also emphasized the need for complete re-registration. And we are saying to the general public, we are saying to Mr. Skerritt, we are saying to the Electoral Commission, we are saying to Duncan Stowe and all the commissioners, no confirmation of voters. We're making that clear. No confirmation of voters. And we're holding our ground on that one. If someone is interested in participating in the process, find yourself in Dominica and get registered. It's as simple as that. Okay? Come down here, meet the requirements, and get registered. We also spoke about voters' ID card to include, but not limited to, the following: your date of birth, we said all of that should be on the card, your date of birth, your name, the address, picture, signature, voters registration number, your constituency, your polling district, and fingerprint. So I'm saying all that to say because we are coming down in a while to have a discussion on the recommendations from Julian Johnson, so Dennis Byron, and the other groups and so on, OAS or what have you, who are actually saying the same thing that I'm saying now. Okay? So we would like to see all of that on the voters' ID card. Today, we want to reiterate these concerns because we are convinced that these are critical in any true democracy and real or genuine electoral reform. There has been absolutely no discussion, for the said and others, from the authorities on campaign finance reform laws to go to parliament. Absolutely no discussion on that. Neither is it in the proposals going forward to parliament for approval. None whatsoever. We want to ask the question this evening: what is the chairman of the Electoral Commission saying? Because the man, I mean, Duncan Stowe is the chairman of the Electoral Commission, and we are hearing very little or nothing from him. We need to call them out by name. It is time we start doing that. As a matter of fact, we need to find out who the PSs are, who the CAPTEC is, who is the what the persons approving stuff and so on at the ministry, the permanent secretaries, the CAPSEC, the FS. We need to get their names and call them out by name. Because without these enablers, Roosevelt Skerritt can do absolutely nothing. He's powerless. He needs these people He need them to approve things, to sign off on documents and so on. So we need to put the pressure on and let these people know that we are looking at them and we will have them under the spotlight. We want to ask Mr. Duncan Stowe this evening and the commission, by extension, what is the real issue? It appears to me that Dominica is the first country to have electoral reform. It appears that way. Because when you hear these people talk and the supporters, it's almost like it's the first time we're going to have reform in the world. So they have all sorts of concerns about reform. But the fact is, most countries have done it with bigger populations, bigger voters lists, and guess what? Completed within 3 to 6 months. You dig it? Antigua, Barbados, Bahamas, Jamaica, you name it. All of these countries did the reforms. And they are having ongoing reforms in terms of reviewing the voters list and removing persons from the list, dead persons, and persons living abroad. Whatever. They keep reviewing the list annually. But we have difficulties in starting off a little reform in Dominica. We This evening, what we're going to look at, like I said earlier on, we are going to focus on what the former IPO chairman, Mr. Julian Johnson, had to say about electoral reform. Okay, he made a number of recommendations, which is also in sync with some of what Dennis Byron recommended and what our own George Irvin Andre also had to say. It is also expressing the same sentiments or echoing the same sentiments of what the OAS, the CARICOM, the Observer Mission, so Dennis Byron, all of these people had to say about electoral reform as it pertains to recommendations to doing it right. So we will focus a bit tonight on Mr. Julian Johnson's recommendations. But I said you can take it from there. We'll continue after that.
Yeah, brother John. I think when we look at electoral reform, I think there are two camps in terms of the issues. All of the other issues, like what you talked about, the no confirmation, the ID card and biometrics, set date for election, and these other things. And in a separate camp, I think we have to put campaign finance reform.
Right.
And I think the reason why when we take all these things, as critical as the cards are, as critical as the cleansing of the list is, campaign finance reform is in a camp by itself in terms of importance. Because what it does is, if we do not have proper campaign finance reform, from reading some of the articles Brother Julian wrote, and like I said, I really apologize tonight because I did some serious homework on it and made the notes and had it on the device, but the device won't come on right now. I just can't get it to come on. So I mean, but critically, it's really the issue of corruption. At the base of it is a process that enables us to cancel corruption within our political process. And more importantly, I think by setting the precedent of canceling corruption in our electoral process, it also sets the society on a broader process of reduction of corruption in public service and the way we function as governance. You understand? You talked about the officials. All of those things, the principles that are inherent in Brother Johnson's work, affects these civil servants. It calls upon their responsibility that is inherent in their position to act in the interest of proper governance. You understand? So by not addressing the issue of campaign finance reform in this bill, the government is telling us very boldly that they are not interested in eradicating corruption from our political and governance process. That is what they're saying in no uncertain terms. Because if they were interested in really setting a level playing field and really putting a sort of paradigm in the country about a reduction of corruption and ensuring good governance, one of the first things they would have done is to accept the points and the principles added to that document by Sir
Mm-hmm.
Byron.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those were on recommendations from Brother Johnson Julian.
That's
You
right.
understand?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that the prime minister and I hate calling the prime minister in that conversation because we should not even be talking about the prime minister. We should be talking about the electoral commission. You understand? That is part of the problem that we are addressing the prime minister in an electoral reform process. We should not have anything to do with the prime minister. The prime minister is there's a conflict of interest at this stage of the game. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So so that's what happens. But we have to understand one of those things that we must not relinquish and sort of not challenge and make sure that we stay full on challenge is the issue of electoral reform because there's campaign finance reform because as long as we do not we do not address the finance issue in our politics that we will never have a level playing field in Dominica politically. You understand? But John, you talked about the issue of the prime minister not giving those things, and even those government officers. You know, there is a relationship between what we want and these people. You know, John. You
Mm-hmm.
see, we are expecting them to act in our interest, but we ourselves are not acting in our interest. If the same fear that we talk about in the society, and I want to come to that a little later on when we finish this,
Yeah.
it affects these people too, you know, and it affects them even more seriously because they have a lot to lose. They have a lot to lose, and especially that they don't understand the empowerment via the Constitution, and
Correct.
especially given the legal system, that even when you try to get justice, there is a whole delay in justice in Dominica. You understand? Things that should be dealt with rapidly are not dealt with rapidly enough by the courts. But at the end of the day, these issues were not issues that we had to be begging of the prime minister. We were not supposed to put ourselves in a position of begging. We were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to put ourselves empowered in a
Demand.
position of demand.
That's
You
right. Mm-hmm.
understand? And that is the problem. That is the problem. We keep begging Roosevelt, and it keeps getting worse because we're trying to get people to come together and coalesce to make us a strength, and that's becoming difficult. And we'll talk about why part of that is difficult too. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? So when we talk about these people, we have to point the finger back at ourselves. We have to point because we could have empowered them by acting collectively, so they would have felt empowered and be forced to act. You understand? It's a kind of it's a kind of symbiotic relationship. If you don't deliver, it makes it difficult for them to deliver because you're amplifying that the government is stronger than us. So we are in this situation in a serious way, not just because of Roosevelt's carry, but we allowed Roosevelt's carry the capacity to act without challenging Roosevelt's carry. You understand? So I just want us to keep that in process as we move forward on these things a bit, you know?
Yeah. And Zed,
Uh,
you have said it so right, eh? That some of the things that we're on bended knees for right now, begging the prime minister, so to speak, or appears to be begging him, it is something that we should be demanding. There are some things to do with electoral reform that is actually in the constitution as we speak, because it
Word.
clearly gives the commission, the chief election officer, the authority by law to cleanse the voters list. The laws we have currently states that anyone that is out of state for more than 5 years, that person have not returned to Dominica within that 5 years. The chief election officer has the authority, the power in law, by law, to remove those names. That same constitution also gives him the power to have voters ID card. It is written in black and white. I cannot remember the exact I think it's section 51 or whatever it is, but I can't remember right now. But I swear I read it myself. It is there in black and
Yeah.
white. But they're making a big fuss about voters ID card and cleansing the voters list and so on. We should be demanding these things. We should be taking these guys to court and to have the electoral commission enforce the law. But we had there begging and crying about it. So you're right. Things that we should demand for. we are still pleading for it as if we were asking for a favor. So your point is well taken. Now, just to look, I know you have what your document, but some of the things that Mr. Julian Johnson recommended, I'm just going to list a few of them because when you told me that you wanted
Hmm.
to talk about Julian Johnson recommendation, I had a quick glance, and I saw a few of them. Yeah, you have about 25 or so, but I think I have about 12 also there tonight. I just did a quick
Awesome.
spot check on it. And some of them, I'm just going to read them out. A Prime Minister, and let's put for those who are just tuning in, these are recommendations from Mr. Julian Johnson. That's the former IPO chairman, okay, Mr. Julian Johnson. And he's saying in his document that a prime minister should serve for no more than 2 terms. The voters list should be cleansed annually, not only of deceased persons, but also of anyone who is not ordinarily resident of Dominica. And he went on to explain that for the purpose of this legislation, the definition of ordinarily resident means a regular and habitual mode of life in Dominica, as opposed to a temporary sojourn, vacation, visit, or transitory presence. In other words, you must be living in the country. It must be a habitual thing. You must be living there. You must be working there, spending time there. Not because you come there and visit and go back, or you in transit or whatever it is, you become resident of the country. You must
Resident.
be resident of the country. You must be living in the country. That is what Julian is saying, right? Number 4, he said there shall be no overseas registration of voters, and that is something we're also saying, and we are going a little beyond that, and said there also shall be no confirmation of voters, be it locally or be it overseas. We are asking for a complete re-registration. Bring your birth certificate, prove your age, prove where you live, proof of address, and a birth certificate to prove that you're 18 and over. So complete re-registration. That's what we're saying.
Registration.
The Electoral Commission shall have the authority to remove the names of persons not residing in Dominica. Dominican who are ordinarily resident overseas who are 18 years and older can vote in 2 virtual constituencies to elect representatives who would represent the interests of Dominicans abroad. Again, that is something we have said on our program, that in order to give the what you call the diaspora, I don't like using that name, but people living overseas, Dominicans living abroad, in order to give them a stake, in order to give them a stake because they're also Dominicans, they live abroad, they may have investment back home and so on. So they should have an interest in what's happening in the country. What Mr. Julian is saying is what we are also saying is that they should be able to vote from wherever they are, but with just 2. So they'll represent 2 virtual constituencies. They'll vote for whoever makes the choice, whoever the reps are. So if the majority
And,
of these persons vote for the Labour Party candidate, then the Labour Party has those 2 seats in Parliament. If they vote for the for opposition party, then that party would have those 2 seats in Parliament. I think this is very fair. So these 2 reps now can represent the diasporans abroad. Let's get something.
yeah, John, let's pause there for a minute.
Problem,
Let,
yes.
let's pause there for a minute. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yes. Interesting
You
point. Yeah.
see, yeah, but when I started reading Brother Johnson's report there, I freaked out. Because when you meet a real intellectual mind, that you can see rational analysis went into that document. It wasn't reactionary, it was just rational analysis. And the way he solved that problem, and you know what it is? We ended up losing the public relations war with Roosevelt Scary because we did not have rational thinking in
Mm-hmm.
our reaction to Roosevelt Scary on electoral reform. That was what we were supposed to be talking about years ago. This exact proposal right there. And we'd have cancelled Roosevelt's Scary attempt to create a sort of thing as if we're anti-diaspora. You
Right.
understand?
Mhm.
But we end up in these reactionary arguments because people do not take time to do scientific analysis, rational analysis before they decide where we are going. And that is why it was critical that we had proper groups doing this discussion. That is a thing that we did not do in the right way. We left this thing to political parties. You
Mhm.
understand? And what we end up getting is a so good points of view, but in many ways reactionary responses to what the prime minister was trying to impose on us. And right here, we could have won the PR relationship with the diasporans, would have defeated Roosevelt Skerritt's attempt to create this sort of, this parity between us, this sort of resonance, negative resonance between us and diasporans, Dominicans at home and Dominicans here. And
Mhm.
that is something that we should have been pushing for from since Byron days. You
Right.
understand?
Mhm.
Because we need our diasporans, bro. We need them.
Okay.
We need them in our developmental process, and that would have been a right way for us to just complete the family without being disadvantageous to look Dominicans at home. You
Right.
understand? And
Yeah.
and, and I really I applaud him for that. I applaud
It's
him
a
for that to
it's
see
a
that
very
kind of.
good recommendation. Actually, when I spoke about it, I didn't speak about it from a CCM's point of view because there was not any consensus on that. But I made that
Yes.
thing as well on the program many moons ago. I was saying one, but the gentleman is saying two, and that's fine. So you have two virtual constituencies to elect representatives who would represent the interest of Dominicans abroad. So it's to me that is just a perfect scenario. So you have our
Yeah,
Dominicans
man.
overseas, wherever they live in, be it in America, be it in Jamaica, wherever, they would vote, and their vote would account for two constituencies, two seats in parliament. There's two. But the way it is right
Yeah,
now,
man.
it is unfair because when these people come down to vote, you can put 300 in Castlebrooke, put 200 in Lapley, put 100 wherever, and the Desperans can actually account for 7 or 8 seats to give the ruling party an edge, and then they go back to the country. No, what the guy is saying there, they don't even have to travel, they don't even have to come down.
They don't even have to travel.
They don't even come. That's what I'm saying.
You understand?
If it's Labour you love the Labour candidate, no problem, vote for them. You love the workers candidate too, vote for them. The fact remains, irrespective what number of votes that are cast, it will only account for two constituencies.
Yes, it's a weighted process. It's mathematically sound, and,
Yes,
and I tried,
exactly.
I tried to put that into the platform, But like I said, we just reactionary people. We have become a reactionary society. We don't process things thoroughly anymore in Dominica, and it's sad, you
Yep.
know. But and the prime minister exploits that absence of analysis on our part in this movement. It has been lacking, and it has been lacking because we talk about consultation with regards to the prime minister, but we ourselves don't do the consultation amongst self. You understand? We don't do the consult. Look at the idea of residency. See how Brother Johnson just puts residency in a simple prose.
Very
You
simple.
know, the simple prose. You understand? It bypasses all these complexities.
And
All these complexities.
Brother Alvin A. Thomas is saying something as well. Let me just read what he said.
Yes, yes, yeah. Let him in. Yeah, man. Let him in.
Definition of residency as contained and defined in the Constitution is very important.
Yeah,
Residency
man.
electoral list are two very important elements in the electoral process. Thank you, Brother Alvin Thomas.
Your your brother Al, you
And
can call into the program, bro. Call
yes,
in, man. Call in.
I'm hoping
Call
he can
in.
call in and make a contribution.
Yeah.
As we
Call
said,
in.
just to continue with a few more of the recommendations by the former IPO chairman, Mr. Johnson Julian. He said
Yeah.
a fixed date for general elections every 5 years.
Yep.
A fixed date.
Yep.
In other words, the date for elections should not be in the back pocket of any prime minister.
Exactly.
Any prime minister should not be saying that my son know what date is going to be and just on the foolishness, and taking something so serious as election as a joke. talking about your son knows the date and it's in the back pocket and no and so on. A fixed date and it would end all that nonsense. Simple.
Yeah, man.
Voters
I,
ID card to include biometric data, including fingerprints. It's also recommending that there should be debates, at least 3 debates, by the political leaders of each political party prior to the general election. In other words, let the people hear what you all have to offer. Let us hear your president
yes.
program. Let us hear what you have on the card for Dominicans. How are you going to improve the lives of Dominicans? How are you going to improve the economy? You know, what connections you have out there with different countries and so on. You know, so the debates will be very healthy for us to have.
And by law, by law, it's not optional.
I know, yeah.
We have, yeah, it's not optional. There's too much optionalness in the country. You have to do it. You
Right,
know.
right. Then it has allocation of money to the Electoral Commission annually by the government to allow it to perform its duties and responsibilities. Again, that is something that the CM said that in order to have the Electoral Commission to be independent, in order to make them independent, there should be an allocation of money set aside every year in the annual budget for the commission. So if the
Yeah.
commission wants to do its work, wants to have ID cards, wants to do whatever, clean the list and so on, they don't have to go begging the government for any monies because that money is in their coffers, it's in their account, and they will account for whatever they spend. So give them the allocation every year and let them do the people's work. Let them perform their responsibilities and their duties. In that way, they will be independent and no government would have any say in what the Electoral Commission does because they will be running their own affairs. They will be an independent commission. So that is my understanding of
Yep.
what's in there.
Yeah,
And
man. Sound.
the last one I have here is like I said, there's here I think there's all about 25, but I just selected about over 12. The last one I have is equal access to state radio station. Equal access to state radio. Again,
Mhm.
that's important because you're talking about democracy, and you cannot have one political party having full access to the national radio station while the others can't go there and equally deliver the goods, so to speak, and let people know what their plans are. It's unfair. The
And,
nation should hear
and,
all parties. All
and
parties.
that's critical in Dominica, John, especially where we have a situation like Q, where
Yeah,
we
go ahead,
come
Sammy.
and we have.
Dr. George. Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You want to invite him in?
No. He's back. Go ahead, go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
and that's critical. So here we are, right, John? We put all our impact. For instance, we come to Q and we try to give a national message. But what do we have? We have about a 50% or more coverage nationally. You understand? There's a lot of people in Dominica that are not hearing us on Q. A lot of people. You see? So when the government has full access to the national radio station that has full access over the country, that means there's 50% of Dominicans who are only hearing Roosevelt Skerritt side. You understand? And that is problematic. That is problematic. And as we touch on that, I really want to call upon the Q family, for a minute. And because we in this Dominica thing, we have become beggars mentally. It's not just a matter of handouts, even if you're not taking handouts, but if your posture is a begging posture, it's not no different than the people taking the handouts. And I think we as the Q family, we should have already put a more emphasis on Q to deliver a wider coverage around Dominica on the service. You know what I'm saying? That should have been one of our demands for continuing to support Q as active listeners. You see? And because listeners were willing and are willing to contribute to make that happen. And I find it that the fact that we have not had that conversation openly with management of the radio station is a problem. It's a problem. That is one of the conversations that we should have amplified on Q, that we need a wider coverage of the radio station. It is disadvantageous to this movement that the core station that we utilizing on has not made a bigger effort to ensure national coverage in Dominica. You understand? So that is a liability in of itself. So there it becomes really critical for this law. And I would go one step further than Brother Johnson does. I would call for it on all radio stations. As long as you get a license to operate in Dominica, you have to make equal time in election for whatever 3 months or whatever for people involved who are registered in the political electoral process to have access to these radio stations.
But Jed,
Yeah.
before I begin, Dr. Dion George, actually his recommendation is referring to both state radio and private stations. Sorry, state radio and private radio station, and it's also saying that if any of these stations refuse, they can be charged. I think there's a fee of five thousand
Brother John,
dollars.
your mic. Brother George, your mic.
Yeah, so it's saying that there will be a fee of $5,000 if they refuse to air any of the political
Thank you.
parties on air. So it's both this state radio and private radio stations, and that would be law. All right, it's Dr. Dion George. I'm not sure if you heard any of our discussions before you come on, but we are on the topic of electoral reform, and we were looking at a number of recommendations by the former IPO chairman, Mr. Julian Johnson, and in our minds, most of what we have there is also in sync with what other persons had to say, like Dennis Byron and OAS, the CARICOM, the Observer Mission, even the local civic groups, and all of that. It's basically in sync with what they had to say as it relates to electoral reform. So your take on it, and let me welcome you to the program as well, and thanks for coming in. Dr. George? For some reason, I'm not hearing him. Well, then while we can get Dr. George, go ahead with your comments. Yeah, so like I was saying, it is for all the stations, both DBS, that's the state radio station, and all the other stations. And I'm not sure, Zed, if you ever saw the recommendations by George Andre. And a lot of what I read there tonight from Julian Johnson is basically what George Andre is saying as well. So you see the bright minds, how they like put things together. Basically the same thing, Most of it, they are looking at basically the same sort of recommendations. And even the OS and CARICOM, I read through some of the recommendations, and some of them are also in sync with what Julian Johnson had to say on reform. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. I'm trying to hook up.
I'm glad you talked about the Caribbean and the brother thing. One of the things that we've been working on out here is making sure we can get information out to these agencies. But is he ready?
Dr. George, can you hear us? Dr. George, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm right there.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
right.
Go ahead, bro. You want to go ahead?
I want to welcome you again.
Mr. Zed, you can finish your thought.
Okay, thank you. And so, John, what I really hope that we can do from the Dominican end, because we're doing our part on this end of there to make sure that these international agencies are up to date on what is going on. But I think the Caribbean leaders and the kind of club that is existing in the Caribbean right now, that we should have a much more serious media blitz on places like Barbados, St. Lucia, and Antigua, these places where these governments are getting indirectly involved in our political process. And I hope that some of us in the media at home, those who are specializing, brothers like even brothers like Lennox and others who have the media, expertise, I would hope that in this period they would take it upon themselves to really engage in a media blast on the Caribbean level, especially, like I say, in places like Barbados, Grenada, St. Lucia, Grenada, Antigua, these places where these ministers are really involved in our electoral process. And so I hope they're listening. I hope they can take it upon themselves to push that forward and strengthen that argument before the time comes. You can go ahead, Brother George. Thank you.
All right. Thank you and good evening, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did have a chance to. First of all, let me apologize for being late. I only got the link. It's like probably 20 minutes ago, although it was sent earlier, but it was sent to my email, which I did not check. No excuses, but I had to go to the computer to get it. But anyway, let me say thank you, both of you, for doing this program. Um, there are folks that might say that this is redundancy, but it's not, in my view. I think that the issues that we are alluding to are issues that we should constantly be alluding to until there are changes that are made. And so some of the comments I heard this evening are ones that deal with fixed date, ones that deal with the issue of residency, and um, and so I just decided not to repeat those, but I do have a different twist, perhaps, on the residency issue, because and I think I heard Brother Blanchard mentioned the view that it could really change an election. And absolutely, it can, because what good political scientists or political strategists do is they go door to door and they realize that St. Joseph is down by about 300 votes, and then what they do, they would get those votes from another constituency and try to fill it in, which is constitutionally flawed and it's not fair. Uh, and I think that's a poignant area. Another thing, I'm not sure if you guys spoke about it, um, but I think that's one of my hugest concern in Dominica's election is the issue of campaign finance reform. Um, and of course, it's a topic that uh, I have discussed even with the OAS when they had their consultations. And when it was my turn to speak, I mentioned it, and the Attorney General, I did not hear it, but someone brought to my attention. He said that, oh, uh, when they come with the academics, they think that's all it is. I don't know where that was going. Uh, and then once, believe it or not, he was on a program with me, and then he says, well, if you have a model, show us a model. And to me, I felt to myself, of course, on several programs, there are several models that have been exposed. Uh, the good Dr. Andre has spoke about the Antiguan model. I have touched on the Jamaican model. Other persons has touched on the St. Kitts model, and yeah, and so I say to myself, I don't know why he would say, if you have a model, show me a model. I mean, there are several aspects to campaign finance reform. I will just touch on two in brief. One, I think they should consider the fact that if a person, say like Zed Lloyd, decided to run for elections, and that Zed Lloyd was a public official and he lost, I mean, does the man have to lose his teaching position for the rest of his life
Should not.
simply because he offered himself for public service? And I would say no. The other issue about campaign, and there are several, but I'll just touch on two. The other one is, and this is very concerning, is the issue of big money. And most of us are familiar with it, but I will mention it because I think if there are persons who is visiting Dominica and they're listening to this program, they need to understand the whole issue of it's important to declare where you're getting your monies from, for the simple reason that it's very possible and plausible, and one can even suspect that is the case right now, that some of the monies that the governments are receiving are the persons who gets the largest share of contracts, the largest share of influence, and often these are not usually beneficial to the locals. And so I think there need to be restrictions and open declaration as to how much money was raised and where those monies came from. And then that is what I would call a fair election. And the last point I just want to touch on quickly is the issue of the upcoming election and the issue of the charges that are laid against members of the opposition. This has been going on for too long. It has been too costly. In fact, I think that is abuse of the judicial power, which one would suspect that the judiciary is influenced by the executive, and it's just not fair. And so if we're talking about a next election, I would propose that all the charges against the opposition members should be dropped, the same way it was dropped for the Speaker of the House. So these are my opening comments.
All right, thank you very much. And just to make a brief comment on what you said earlier on, that it is not fair, and I agree with you that if someone decides to run for public office, and you use the example of said like being a teacher, and he loses the election, then he's no longer employed because he lost the election, he's out of a job. Now, let me just say to you that that only happens with those persons who have contested for the opposition parties. And that is where it becomes even more unfair because
Good point.
every candidate who contested the elections for the Dominican Labour Party and lost, they are all employed, gainfully employed. And we can call names. We can call Ambrose George, who lost at Rose South, and he's gainfully employed. We have Dr. Christmas, who also contested the Marigot seat. He's also gainfully employed. You have Shanks at Salisbury. You have Dr. Caressa, who lost Marigot, and he's also gainfully employed. So they create employment for the persons who have lost the elections, but the opposition members who have lost, they remain without a job. So that makes it even more unfair. And all of that, I believe, should form part of the whole reform process. Yes,
Very
go
good
ahead.
point.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point, Josh. That's an awesome point. And that's why we have to be having. If we're really a fair society with good governance, the conversation we would have been having is constitutional reform. The conversation will not even just be electoral reform. We would be having a conversation on constitutional reform. But you see, this government does not want that to take place because if that takes place, the power will be given to the people, not the politicians, in that Westminster process. And that is why this brother wants to change nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, Brother George, you can.
George, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're
Yeah,
fresh, so you can bat.
all right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully, I score some runs.
Yeah. You will.
Something happened perhaps 2 weeks ago, where they what did they do? They had something about a supplementary budget where the government wanted to loan more monies uh, for budgeting purpose, and my view on that is that's not being financially savvy, and that is really further indebting the country. And the unfortunate situation with that is Zed and Blanchard, you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The eyes have it.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, if them man say right now, let's invest in buying bucket of waters, the eyes have it.
That's right.
And the other unfortunate thing is, say, for example, I am a laborite. You telling me I'm not brave enough to tell the Prime Minister, sir, yes, I will support you. I will fight for my constituency. But this idea of just adding more to our debt with the supplementary budget, I really don't think I want to support that. And, would I be not victimized, but would they cut my neck for that? So how often, I guess the question should be, do members of the Labour Party go against the Prime Minister when he proposed something? Do you recall?
0%, 0 times.
And just to say my observation, without an opposition leader, I don't even see the use for having parliament. Not opposition leader, sorry, an opposition. Yeah. I mean, right now, in my view, the function of this parliamentary process is to go ahead and pass the bills. Yep. Because it will pass. Now, that's a concern. And the concern with that is the whole issue of what you guys were speaking of earlier, electoral reform. I mean, without the public intervening as they have proposed to, or as they have suggested to. And in the first reading, certain persons stood up. How do I say this? Without the public intervention, gentlemen, I would tell you that bill going through. Yes or no?
Yes, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I qualify my statement, I want to say that without the public, without the public says no, and not just say no, you know what I mean? There has to be some sort of civil disobedience here. Yeah. And so these are just some observations. But time and again, Mr. Blanchard, if you want, you can have the public interact. It's up to you.
Yes, there are no calls. So that's why. So I'm just going to get a musical break because there are no calls right now. So let's just get a musical break and hope to get a call or two.
All right, very nice. Very nice.
All right, folks, feel free to call at this time. Number to call are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. The digit number 616-4257, and overseas number 305-432-9624. We're able to call at this time.
What people must have no fun. They have to be on the run, ducking from bandits, bullets and guns. While they're making a mockery of with impunity and family.
Good evening, caller. You're right on cue.
Yes, good evening.
To you.
Yeah, good evening to all. Let me see. There's something that Zed Lloyd said, and I'm fully in agreement with him.
Right.
Because I want the Caribbean leaders to know. I'm wondering how they can know, how we can make them know that they are interfering in Dominica's business. Where their business in their country is good, and they interfering in our business. Before anything happened, the other day, Mr. Motley, Miss Motley said, I don't know his voice.
Right.
But it was there. Before anything happened, they helping Roosevelt Kerry. I want them to know they should not interfere in our business in this country. Because you see the Caribbean laughing at Dominica. They're doing their business good, and they're laughing at Dominica because they know who is our juju in Dominica. Thank you.
I agree.
It looks like this constitution is not for the law-abiding, only criminals and crooks to get them off of the hook. What people must have no fun. They have to be on the run, ducking from bandits, bullets and guns. While they're making a mockery of democracy. While
Zed, I missed your point that
Yeah. Then
Lucille was saying.
mm,
Um, in what reference did you make the point that the Caribbean leaders need to recognize that Dominica is sovereign and that they should stay out of it? How did you do this?
Yeah, well, we've had these people getting involved in our process. Salisbury, look at Salisbury, look at Salisbury. We had our people, Dominicans, acting passively, responsibly in the election process, and you had foreign troops coming into Dominica to kill Salisbury people. You know, and who sent these people?
mhm.
Who sent these people? And not that I cannot understand a Caribbean force, for instance, outside if things get out of hand. I can allow them that premise. But to come and actively engage in an act of shooting on our people on our soil, man, that hurt me so much. Like some of these guys there should have been body bags in Salisbury. We should have just set an example for the Caribbean. Don't come back here in our business. There should have been some goddamn body bags that night in Salisbury. I'm telling you. You cannot just come on people's land like that and come and shoot them up and live ammunition. Nobody selling nothing at you. Tear gas people out. Boy, the man have no idea, bro. I'm telling you. I wish I was in Dominica.
I feel the passion because I had a very same feeling as well. I mean, to have these foreign guys just come here and shoot our people, check against them, and for no reason. I mean, there was no
No reason.
justification for that. I mean, the people who were getting on bad and burning down buildings and and doing stuff, and our local police can't stop them because they outnumber them. I can understand that, but peaceful people, 3 o'clock in the morning, you have elderly people, sickly people, you have babies, children. I mean, that is just
Yeah,
unheard
so
of.
brother George.
Yes.
So brother George, what I was saying is we have to preempt them, not necessarily focusing on them, but focusing on their public. So for instance, we should have a media blitz in Barbados to highlight the people to me as hypocrisy. You understand? While
Yes.
playing internationally as some big democratic, you know, leader and practicing, hypocrisy in the region. We should highlight in St. Lucia, we should highlight in Grenada, Antigua. We have the kind of population we have in Antigua, largely northeastern. We have to exploit that. We have to have an amplification of our issue in these strategic areas. You understand? I think it's critical so that we can raise public opinion against these leaders long before they act. Because we have to face this thing again. And the next time we face it, we don't want no foreign leaders coming and decide our future in Dominica no more. Straight up.
Yep.
Well,
Straight up.
I concur. Just 2 points. One also want to remind the listening public the reason why I would underscore Brother Z point about interference in the electoral process of Dominica is because it was on the eve of an election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And simply put, one can argue that it would quiet the Salisbury constituency. Not only that, it would deter any other constituency from attempting
Yeah.
to protest or to demonstrate. It would deter any other constituency. And so what happened there was a mass of force. Brother Zed, I heard you said that you wish you were there and so forth. I appreciate the passion. But one has to be rational that the Salisbury population alone cannot fight with the Caribbean region.
Yeah,
And
true.
yeah, and what happened was a military attack. My father, when I was a younger boy, My father was a defense force, and he always told me, Dion, the best way to attack your enemy is early morning when you're sure they are sleeping.
Oh, really?
And he says to me
Wow.
that prepare well. And so what they did, you best believe it, they attacked Salisbury by
Mhm.
air, land, and sea. Helicopter, ground soldiers, and you best believe the Coast Guard was going around our coast. This was a military attack.
Declare war.
So much so that it was belligerent with no mercy. And so much so when the people try to defend themselves, which is, by the way, a universal right with the United Nations, you have to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What they did, they started using live bullets. But I don't want to make this out of the general education and political perspective of the election that was intervened in. I also want to insert, if I may, a spiritual context to this. There are several elderly people, brothers, and listening public around the vicinity of where that event took place, where the expired tear gas were concentrated. Several of them has passed away. As far as I understand, there's an investigation going on. But I understand that several of them, and I know them. Well, I know some of them. That's number one. The other thing is where you have, I don't want to sound old folktale. Sorry, not folk. I apologize. Yeah, I'm very serious. But it's
We
called
got
folk.
you. We got you, brother.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
okay.
When you have old people crying on you,
Mm.
crying, and especially if they're innocent. And of course, the older people were innocent. There's a saying it will fall back on you. And two people, as far as I understand biblically, that God protects children, elderly people, and you best believe disabled people.
Doc, I think we have someone on the line. Good evening,
All
caller.
right, go ahead.
Good evening,
Good
caller.
evening, gentlemen.
Yes, go ahead, please.
To you, John, Mr. Zed, and my brother from Bowie.
Yes,
Dr.
I.
Shaw. I
Respect.
Zed, Doctor, on the angle. Because sometimes he makes some good points. Sometimes, he's controversial, but a good conversation always needs controversy.
Oh, yes.
So you have the pros and cons.
That's right.
And we must learn to understand that and have good discussion, healthy discussion, whether you like or dislike one or the other's part of the conversation. It's healthy. So I do admire what Zed comes up with sometimes, and I want to tackle some of what I heard the caller call and say she agree with Zed, my sister Lucille, because I have an issue. I'm very dismayed at the people, not all of the people, but a lot of people in Dominica who don't understand their civic duty. And it's to the point where it's going to cost the country and everyone, man, woman, and child, the young and the old, like Brother Judge said, you have the baby and the elderly. Everybody's going to pay the price. Labor right, non-labor right, because of some of our people's ignorance. And what the problem is, there has to be a re-education of the people, because hear me out. For 23 years, a man takes office. He done stole everything. He done change everything and put people, select people, not elect. They were selected and run the country in the way that they want. Sold the sovereignty of the country, and now they're sitting there pillaging the country. And then the people in their setting mind have been cut.
and they think that politics is about getting paid. Somebody have to buy you something, somebody have to hold that down. It's a CEO and these kind of things. And they have done brought politics down to the little minute.
Dr. George, just mute your mic, please. We're getting the feedback from you.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
all right. And they have done this in the country for the last 23 years. So now the ignorance is well rooted now. There has to be a re-education, and the re-education is not gonna only be on Q95 or on Facebook, because a lot of these people who has a telephone, some of them could barely keep it on and not going to look on Facebook. I would tell you the average person who holds a phone out there looking for TikTok and stupid video joke business on the phone to look and who's wearing what and what kind of, because I hear some of the conversation of people and they are into Facebook for who's wearing what, who's the star, this and who's all this garbage. Nonsense. Things that don't really make them any better or smarter. And our people have to be educated. They're taking old fashioned style. Mr. Papi or John, anyone of you guys know when they used to go around Dominica back in the days, in the 70s and 60s, with bullhorn and a car,
Yeah.
educating the people, meet people in the villages, meet people every weekend, every other weekend, however it's possible, to educate people on the situation that's in the country. Because a lot of these folks, today or tomorrow, election call, they will take a pay, they will take a CO, they will take the poison ham and the poison turkey, because that's how ignorant the people are. They don't see there must be a time that you turn and say, well, look, we can't continue to do the same thing. They said that you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That is the definition of insanity. Now, I want to take what I heard when I first turned on. I did not hear the earlier parts of the conversation. This is why I take, based on what my sister Lucille said, I've said on the radio over and over again on Matt Show, Dominica is in experimental state. That's why you see them other jokers in the Caribbean don't want to say nothing or do nothing with Skerritt, because they sit right on there with him. Because you look on it like that. Skerritt been bamboozled while he try and bamboozle the people. He got bamboozled by Ron Gonzalez. He got bamboozled by Motley. And he get bamboozled wherever you go. Because look, he had to run over somewhere in Guyana, somewhere go to give a man a citizen honor, honorary from India. When he was in India, he could have given the man when they announced honorary giveaway, whatever they give him, because them things mean nothing to me. Them kind of things are joke, and they are political bargain chips that these guys gave out, try to get prestige and to have people do little favor, because they're dirty little tricks they do on the outside. All the many trips that this man take, the people know where he goes, who he meets, what they do. Nobody knows. This country is supposed to know these things. You just don't go and come like this ain't your house. It's not your own personal house. This is a country, the people's place. This is a country run by laws, and people have certain responsibility that they expect from you. You ain't running your own little back shop, little bar over around the corner, and you could do what you want. This is not how the country runs. So my thing is, Dominica has been experimented on, and to Dr. George's point where he said that the thing gonna pass, he's right. But I tell you one thing to stop it. Serious opposition protests. I've been hearing Joshua tell some of the stories that he has, and he's willing to work with others, and everybody is trying to form a unified force. This kind of nonsense, because that's what it would take. But it takes all the people, because there are some enablers who continue to enable that kind of nonsense. But that can be stopped, Dr. George, if the people stand up as serious resistance, and they could stop it, because the people has the responsibility to the country and not to one man. Fellas, I'm listening. I'm enjoying the conversation. But it takes people's power to overthrow the ones in power. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you very much for your contribution. And that's a fact. I mean, it will only pass if we allow it to pass. Yes, yes.
John, I'm glad, brother. Thanks for that. Thanks for that intervention. You launched it where it's supposed to go in the time that we have left. John, we spend a lot of time on the radio, but we spend most of the time, and I say we, I'm not, we spend a lot of time on the radio in complaint mode. We spend a lot of time on the radio in disempowerment mode. And I've really been enjoying these Friday evenings with Brother George and others, and Zar just came through great, and you, John, and because I see we are trying to take it to another level, and I'm happy for that. But you see, there's this idea that comes up on the radio every day. Oh, the people are afraid, the people scared, the people scared, the people scared, the people scared. You see, at this 11th hour, we have to stop reinforcing that concept in the people's head. It is the first step. The first step in struggle is to stop amplifying your disadvantages. It's the first step in struggle, to stop amplifying your disadvantages. You're weaponizing against yourself. You understand? 2 years ago, bro, in all this thing about the people freak, 2 years ago, we brought thousands of people on the Bayfront, John. You remember?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
You remember, John?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thousands of people in all that idea about people scared, people scared. You know what was different in that protest? We organized. We organized. We didn't come one day before protest and call it and rush and try. No, we organized. We got resources. The diaspora facilitated resources. We got buses in villages. People had buses waiting for them to come to town. You see what happened? We got over 3,000 people an evening in Roseau. We can get people into the city. The majority of the people who are scared of the government live in urban areas. We need to make sure that the rural posse is well prepared, well organized, well funded to come on those protests, and we will not have any failed protests. You understand? And when the urban center sees that massive from the rural, they will join. They will join. You understand? So it is the way that we do things that is our enemy.
You're right.
And so this time around, I don't even want to leave that conversation in the air. I want to start feeding it out and giving it energy, because that is the way forward. We have to plan, organize, and provide the resources for the people to be able to come to where we need them to come. And the protest will be successful, and we'll be able to stop Roosevelt's scary if we do it the right way.
Yes, I agree with you. And I have seen big crowds, and like you said, it was well organized. I remember in 2019, CCM, we actually had an electoral reform rally by the bridge at the arch. And there should have been at least 2,000 people at that rally because it was well organized. The
Well,
various groups also met, I believe it was in 2020. The different groups, Munsewi, CCM, NJAM, UWP, political parties, and so on, met. And there was a massive meeting in Lago as well, well attended. It was well advertised, and people from the rural areas came down, and we had a very good turnout in Lago. So you're right. It's a matter of getting it organized to ensure that the people comes out in large numbers. There's Dr. George.
If I may add, first of all, I would like to say that I concur with Brother Zed and his humility to confess his gratitude of sharing thoughts with us. And I want to say that the feeling is mutual, and I think that the purpose is mutual as well. But I also think that the spirit is moving. The reason I say that is because, yeah, you mentioned the view of organizing, and see how it came to Mr. Blanchard with Munsewe and the other non-governmental organizations, and how they were able to pull a huge crowd. Now, I would like to add that there are other ways as well, and I want to share just 3 ways with you. I will just mention the theory, and then I will get to the point. And so there is a gentleman named Michael Novak, and he has a theory which is called the moral system. And what it means is it is the responsibility of a plurality of groups in society that should from government. Okay, so what is the applicability of that in Dominica? My dear brothers, it is happening right now. In 2019, the Dominica Civil Society Coalition on Electoral Governance gave a report. And for those who are not aware of the members who we have here, we have Dominica Christian Council, the DCC, we have the Dominica Business Forum, the DBF, we have the Waterfront and Allied Workers Union, the WAWU, and we have the Dominica Bar Association, DBA, and we have the Dominica Association of Evangelical Churches, DAEC, and finally we have the Dominican Public Civil Union, Service Union. And what they are saying in that document, that as an alternative, perhaps to violence or to direct protest, not that direct protest is wrong. As a scientist, one conquered there are times, that's one of the only way you can get a government out. But the view that I gave about the moral system, it is really happening in Dominica with all the groups that I have called and mentioned. If there is a coalition where they can agree and organize and contend an election, I would submit for your consideration that there is a great chance that they could win. That's number one.
Hell yeah.
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 And number two, there's a gentleman named Thomas Jefferson. He has a theory. Actually, the theory is not his, it's really John Locke. But it's called the universal truth. And it says that we the people, he says, believe that we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, this is the point. But if a government were to infringe on these rights, it is the responsibility of the people to overthrow that government and elect a new one. Now, one might say, why are you speaking about overthrowing a government? It wasn't me. It was Thomas Jefferson who penned that in the Declaration of Independence. And that's why they pay me as a professor to teach that to the students, to give them civic education, that it's you that have to do it. And so the applicability of what I'm saying here is I am very impressed with what the civil society coalition is doing. And finally, on this whole topic of organizing, I would like to see not just the civil groups do it, but that the political groups as well. And so I know it's going to be difficult, but I know there is Labor, Freedom, and other parties. If they could, and they don't have to be best of friends, What they
Exactly.
need is to recognize a common purpose. A common purpose. And so whatever government that comes in after this incumbent, it would be an interim government. Yes. And then persons do what they have to do thereafter. And so the whole issue there is to recognize the common purpose, to come together as I have laid out with the coalition, and that the political leaders themselves would come to that realization. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, brother.
So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Brother George, thanks for that. Thanks for that intervention. You see,
Yeah.
the thing for these things to succeed, right? The prior action has to be a suspension of political identity. You have to have that period where political identity is consciously muted, consciously, not reactionary, consciously muted. And that is what is the problem in Dominica. Roosevelt Skerritt has made us such a survivalistic society that even in the politicians who are part of the process of resisting are caught up in that survivalistic mindset. You understand? And that is what is hindering us right now, that survivalistic mindset. We're not moving back up to the philosophical mindset, the consciousness mindset. We're in survivalist mode. And survivalist mode is our biggest liability right now in the struggle. The survivalist mentality, because it prevents us from sitting on the table and, as Dr. George says, not having to like each other. There is nothing about liking each other. What we like now is the flag. The
Yeah.
flag is what we have to like. Dominica is what we have to like at this juncture. You understand? And once we understand that, it will help the people, because the people don't want to feel like they're fighting a struggle to put a political party in power. They don't want that to be their struggle. So we have to, for us to take away that thought from them, we have to suspend ourselves politically for a minute and come together under Madam Nick. Madam Nick, work with who you don't like. You understand? Let go of those things. We as Christian people, but man can't forgive. Man can't forgive. We's Lord of Nations, we's everything, we's all them things. Jesus, 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 but we cannot forgive. How we gonna pull this thing off if we can't forgive? You understand? So that is the mentality that has to embrace the place, a mentality of forgiveness, and being able to come and shake man's hand and say, let's do this for Dominica. You understand? When we finish, go back in your political party and go and campaign.
That's right.
But for now, suspend that political process in the country, Gassan,
Mhm.
and let us come under Madam Nick. Madam Nick.
Unity, unity. Yes, sir. I feel you. Yeah, you're calling for unity. Yeah, let's come together and make this thing happen. I've said it before. I've said it before, and I will say it again that the Dominican public should really give the government slash electoral commission a deadline to get over
Straight
with this
up.
thing. Deadline. So yes, we know that the bill has been introduced, what they call the first reading. But our advice to the government is to go back to the drawing board, do the right thing, and give
Or else.
people what they deserve. Return to Parliament with the recommendations given by the various recognized professional organizations like the OAS, CARICOM, the Observer Mission, Sir Dennis Byron, Mr. Jordan Johnson, and the other groups, civic groups, and so on, the churches and the um, Mrs. Forum, and so on. Go back to the drawing board and ensure that you bring this thing to Parliament. And I believe what we need to do as a group, I'm not talking about we, I'm talking about all the various groups and the political parties and so on. We should again send our recommendations to reflect true and genuine reform, which will be beneficial to the entire country and not a political party. George Irvin Andre did a very good job, a very splendid job. And I recall he reading out these recommendations and so on. And it wasn't all about him. I mean, based on discussions with the different groups and listening to Patriot call the radio station and make their points and so on, he put something together. And to me, that is what that we should be looking at, because that is what I believe Dominicans want, and that is what should be presented to Parliament for the second and third readings. So we are saying that the recommendations from these qualified, experienced, and professional individuals, that is what should be taken to Parliament. Nothing less and nothing more. And let us also avail ourselves at the Parliament whenever the second and third reading is going to be passed and to make that thing law. Because if we fail, Dominicans, I'm talking to you tonight, if we fail to avail ourselves at Parliament when that second and third reading is going to be read and to make it law, we can say goodbye to democracy. Goodbye, bye bye. Because this guy will rule by decree. Because everything that is now illegal will be made legal. Bringing in people to vote by the plane loads and the boat loads, double and triple registrations, people voting on dead people's name, and all of that. All that will become legal. Bribery, treated bribery, all of that is legal because that is what they have. That is what they have to Parliament. So we have to stand up. We have to say no to it. We have to ensure that that bill is not passed in its current form. We want reform, but it must be genuine reform. It must be true reform to reflect what the people of Dominica wants. Gentlemen, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I have not heard, well, perhaps not in a formal way, persons talking about, and I'm ashamed of myself because I cannot remember the word verbatim. However, it is equivalent to bribery. And what I'm referring to, my friends, is giving people alcohol to vote for you. Now, there is a very deep history, not only in democracies, but even more so in Eastern Europe areas, where they would, during elections, they would give alcohol for free. And in the United States specifically, in the Western world, they did that a lot in the 1800s until persons were dying out of, I guess, cirrhosis of the liver or just maybe overdose. There was a lot of violence, particularly domestic, and even men fighting after they get drunk. And I say that because I see that the Dominican public is falling into that sort of cycle where during election, the government gives free concerts and they give free drinks, and that in its own self means, and I'll share with you, I told that to the OS, but I was not so clear. But when people say Dominica election was free and not fair, I don't succumb to that view. Free doesn't mean you did not have to pay to vote. Free also means you have to vote with your free will. And if you were not sober, when I say not sober, that you were not under the influence on some sort of persuasion. So yes, the man give me $500 to buy Galvedas. The man give us 2 free show. I voting for him. That means you did not vote free. You're voting based on some sort of influence.
Yeah.
So because of that, I am voting for him, or I'm voting for that party. And so in context, Dominica election was not free and it was not fair. Thanks.
But I think the subject to correction. But I think when the observers spoke about the elections were free, but not necessarily fair, what they were saying is it was free in the sense that nobody held you at gunpoint to vote. Nobody forced you to vote. You went to vote on your own free will. So I think that's how they explained it. As
I
to whether
know.
they're right, I don't know. Sure.
I totally understand what you said. And yes, you best believe I also understand what the observers were saying. But my view is a very technical view that looks at it almost like I was splitting hairs. In other words, the view of no bribery means no bribery, period. Not for the purpose of voting for you. Does that make sense?
Would it not fall under fear? Just not fear? It's
No.
very technical. All right, let me read a few comments from Alvin Thomas. I see a few comments there, and I thought you would have called in. Still have time, sir, but let me read.
I know, Alvin should call us, but
You said campaign financing, I think I was wondering, no, campaign financing and voters' ID are important. However, if the voters list and who qualifies to vote are not looked at, everything else falls apart. Then says again, gentlemen, I wish to note that the current bill that is before the House is in violation of Section 51 of the Constitution. This is fundamental matter that must not be overlooked. The bill has not been presented to the House in keeping with the Constitution. The Electoral Commission has not been in receipt of the bill as is required in keeping, I think I heard this point before, the Electoral Commission has not been in receipt of the bill which is required in keeping with the Constitution, a clear violation of our Constitution. So in other words, the Electoral Commission, which is the body responsible for elections in Dominica, to manage elections in Dominica, has not, whatever Alvin is saying, the bill has not been presented to them, but it is going to Parliament. So that is a violation of the Constitution. That is something that we need to look into and to get some.
yeah, yeah, brother John. That's something that I mentioned to one of the commissioners, from the
Hold on, hold on. Good evening, caller. You're right on
yeah.
cue.
Good evening, Mr. Blanchard,
To you, good evening to you.
and your guest, Mr. Dr. Dion George
Yes.
and Zed Lloyd.
Yeah.
Good evening,
I'm
sister.
in total agreement when you all said that you all are going to present the recommendations again.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I've been saying.
We should, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bring it, put it back on record. Put it. If we have to do it 10 times, let us show 10 times we presented the recommendations. And in addition, if it's possible to send those recommendations to all those OAS and observers and all these kind of people that Mr. Scary said that he was going to invite to the parliament to pass this bill. Can we send those recommendations to the people so they'll know what they're getting into and they'll know what they're coming to witness or not coming to witness?
Yep.
We're in contact. We're in that process, sister. We're in that process. We're in that process. One love.
Just before you continue.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Like you all said, let's do it the right way and let's do it.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much. And as the caller just spoke about, Mr. Skerritt said you would invite the OAS and what have you to the parliament when the bill is going to be passed. I mean, this thing, according to my partner, what is his name? I mean, it is laughable. These same organizations that he's talking about presented recommendations which he have not adhered to, which he have not taken to parliament to pass as law, but he's bringing them now, he's suggesting bringing them now to parliament to witness he passing law that is nowhere close in keeping to the recommendations that these very same organizations presented to him. I mean, this is a big joke. The OAS and all these people gave you recommendations of cleansing the voters list and finance reform and all of that. None of these are part of the recommendations that you are going to pass, that you want to pass in parliament. But you are bringing them to witness it.
I want him to bring them. Let us rain on his parade. That's why I tell you, I don't worry about Roosevelt, organize, we have to organize. That's the perfect day for us to just show the world. Perfect day for us to show the world what time it is in Dominica. I'm telling you, I want him to bring them. We rain on his goddamn parade. That's what we have to do. Rain on it. You understand?
Let's go call it there. We've been calling it right on cue.
Yes, that is why I am asking right now. Meanwhile, we are waiting for the second and third bill. What are we doing?
We working, we working, man.
Mobilizing.
We working. We working, man. We working, booby. We working. We working. ERC working in the background. We working. Just
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah.
What it is that the Labour Party is afraid of? What it is that they have? What it is that they have hiding? What it is that they have taken away from the people? What it is that Roosevelt Skerrit doesn't want to give Dominicans voter ID cards? My friend, you are supposed to be the servant of the people. You are supposed to be the servant of the people and not the masters of the people. Dominicans stand up and his voter ID card. I remember when Roosevelt Skerrit was negotiating with Byron, he said that he hoped Lennox Lincoln, the leader of the opposition, then will agree because he will agree with the terms and conditions. Why are you fighting Dominicans that you do not want voter ID cards? And when Dominicans are standing up for their rights, they tend to get police officers outside to fight us. In Barbados, the Myanmar police officers, they have voter ID cards there, you know, and they're voting in a dignified way and in an honest and truthful way. But she sent the troops to Dominicans to open fire on us all over in the Caribbean countries where they have voter ID cards and people are voting and voting in the way it is supposed to be done. Those prime ministers now sending police officers with machine guns to all the people of Dominica. Dominicans, be what it may or may what it be, stand up. We are going to stand up. We are going to stand up. One man cannot have the country to run something like that. The churches, the institutions, the organizations, where are you all? In 1979, all of those people there stood up. One man deciding that he just tweeting and turning and tweeting. People names are dead, people that are dead, their names are still on the list. And Dominicans were sitting there and we want Q95 and the opposition, UWP and Freedom and CCM to rectify the problem. All of if you see that reading go through, our children will never have a future. Because this people know
it's over.
The opposition, UWP, is not in parliament. So those people that in opposition now, Mr. Skerrit, we can rush over them and we can just go to parliament and the eyes will have it. We don't want national ID card. We want when you go to the bank or you go to the credit union to do business, Mr. Skerrit, no, he has an ID card. He has a driver's license card. He has social security card to do. People have the same name. People have the same name. You are fighting Dominicans. You do not want to give Dominicans voter ID card. Dominicans, it's time that we give Skerrit a dose of his own medicine. It's time that we give him a dose of his own medicine. He takes us for granted. He denigrates us. He tells us where we go in this big fridge. Going with our butter dish and he denigrates us. He tells the elderly people, are you going to die just now? Or you have the money still? Use the money. He denigrates Dominicans. He denigrates Dominicans because we are not standing up. We are allowing Skerrit to do too much of what we want. It is our taxpayers' money. That's right. And if we are telling you you have to go down that road and you don't want to go down that road, we have to give you something to feel. Enough is enough. And with so much talking, I am fed up of talking. That's why you say I don't want to call. It's time for action. It's time for action. It's a democratic country. The Bible tells you it is a time for everything. A time for throwing stones, a time for gathering stones. A time for rescuing. And now is the time, boots on the ground, to take off Labour Party in government. We should talk for people. Why are you fighting Dominicans? What it is that you have? What it is that you are afraid of? You say you run things, you run things. If you run things and you want to do things on a level playing field, my brother, do the honest thing. But no, or you have so much wealth, or you cannot give an account for, or you know, or you have all crooks and criminals Dominica passport. The man can sign a memorandum of understanding on our behalf. And if that deal is so good that Dominicans don't do, well, it was a bad deal, I didn't want you to know. But I tell you, when Dominicans, I am ready because Dominica belongs to every one of us, not Roosevelt Skerrit. He's supposed to be the servant of the people, and if you feel you are the master of the people, and when the people put you as the servant, We have to take you out.
That's
To
correct.
wrap it up. Our children will never have a future under that wicked government.
That's correct.
Thank you, Kopel. Thank you, brother. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
thank
much.
you, thank you.
John, do you mind I say something?
Hey, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the OAS report is not long.
No, it's not.
Yeah, their recommendations is only 6 points, you know. The first point is a comprehensive, updated of electors list. And I can tell you specifically, it is in chapter 2 of the the Registration of Electors Act, section 7C. It merits a debate to whether residency in Dominica should be prerequisite for voting eligibility. And the biggest issue the OAS is saying that for the need for reform is the issue of absent. And so if someone is absent, okay, but we're not going to go for all of that because we don't have time. But the whole issue that how long can you be absent for? Can you be absent for 10 years and then come back and vote? And so the answer before was 5 years. But then that brings up an issue. So my recommendation would be residency. Just establish it. If I move to New York tomorrow and I stay there for 6 months, am I a resident? No. I think New York maybe takes you 18 months, thereabout. So that's number one. Number two is implementation of the voters' identification system. Several persons talk about it. And number three is the enactment of campaign finance regulation. We talked about that earlier. Number four is the review of electoral boundaries. Of course, the fact that someone from Salisbury should not go and vote in St. Joseph. Number five is the review of the legislative governing validity of votes, whether it's a valid vote. Once I heard that Thompson lost by 6 votes. I'm not comfortable with this. And the final one is the promotion of political participation by women. And I don't think that's a long document. And so I don't know why this is taking so long. Again, I know that we're up for time. And I will just close by saying that I don't think we should feel that we're repeating ourselves. I would agree with Brother Zed that it's a healthy discussion for the public and even for the government, if they are listening, that maybe one day they may have an epiphany, an eye-opening, where they would say, you know what, man, this is really true. I'm not sure if I'm praying in vain, but that's it. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, the
Yeah,
entire
man.
Zed. Your closing comment is now 2 minutes after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, John, you know, I want to call upon the people to pray and prepare themselves, bro. Fast and prepare yourselves for this. You see, we talk about spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We just think of them in people in priest court and pastor thing and in the church, but it's not in them place there, you know. It's in elements of governance and corporations. Is there those spiritual wickedness existing, you know? You understand? Right now, you have to prepare yourself for this. You have to prepare yourself. I promise you there will be organization this time around. You have to prepare yourself for this. You see, because it's going to test you. It's going to test you, and it's going to test your humanity. It's going to test a lot of things about you, and you have to be able to keep your head together. Because you see, we talk a lot about labor rights and labor rights. Let me tell you, it's not UWP heights and freedom heights and other heights and so that's feeling it alone, you know. Labor rights feeling it in Dominica. Labor rights not joining the movement because we have been doing a picnic. Every time we come and meet Roosevelt Scary, we coming to go back home. A picnic we having. Labor rights cannot join you in a picnic because after you go back home, they have the persecution of Roosevelt to deal with. If you want labor rights to join the streets, you have to leave that picnic mindset at home. You have to leave that picnic mindset at home. You have to come for business. You have to come for business. And when you come for business, people will join you when you come for business. So this thing we've been doing about coming to Rose, one thing like it's a picnic we're coming on, and when you're ready to go back home, you don't have no going back home this time. You don't have no going back home this time. If this law get passed in Dominica, I'm telling you, and these opposition parties and that fighting thing, if that law get passed, or you have no value in Dominica again, all shall lose. You understand? All shall lose. So go on with all your personal things still and sort of just fractioning the goddamn thing and think all you're going to benefit. All going to lose. You understand? All going to lose. So
George,
I'm
you're
telling
right.
all you fellas, suspend that political process. Suspend all your politics in Dominica for a minute.
Yep.
And let us come under the flag of my Dominic. Otherwise, everybody going to lose in Dominica. Everybody going to
Yeah,
lose
so,
in Dominica.
see, I'm not sure if Dominicans understand what is really in the bill. I mean, I read some of it, and I really wish and I really hope that the opposition forces to include the civic groups and the political parties could probably have some town hall meetings in the various constituencies and to let people understand what exactly the government wants to pass in parliament. This thing is very serious because the CBI citizens, they are also citizens of Dominica. Now, if
Thank you, John.
are allowed to vote in an election, particularly as they are talking about electronic voting, it means that 50,000 CBI citizens we have out there could vote. And we in Dominica, it really wouldn't matter even if we vote or not, because these people will outnumber us. And government will remain in power forever and ever, amen. Because they will keep or the government in power. So we have to ensure that these things also go to parliament. Like St. Kitts, the CBI citizens in St. Kitts can't vote. They cannot vote. The citizens, the CBI citizens in St. Kitts cannot vote, and that's a fact. So we have to ensure that we have that same thing in Dominica, where the CBI citizens are not allowed to vote in our elections. That is very important. If we're talking about electronic
Telling
vote,
you.
we have to get the details and how it's going to be worked out. If at all we are going to support it, we have to know how that thing is going to be monitored, how it's going to work out. So there are a lot of things we have to explain to the public out there and let them understand that if we don't stand up and to stop this thing from passing in parliament, we are in deep trouble. We will be slaves in our own country. We will have no say. We will have no rights in our own country. That is very serious. Dominicans take that thing seriously. So when we call upon you next time around to come outside the parliament to prevent that thing from passing in parliament in its present form, I'm not saying we should stop, we should be against reform, but I'm saying in its present form, it should not stand. Brother George. Brother George, closing comments and we're going to wind up.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I have a different view, but it's okay. If persons want to wait for the second reading, that's them. But
I,
I don't know why wait for the second reading. Um, my view is waiting for the second reading is delaying the process even further. A process that could happen so quickly.
Well,
And
no, before you go for no, before you continue, remember I said earlier on that we should give them a deadline to take this into parliament.
100.
well,
Remember
that
that?
I can
100.
agree with.
Yeah. So that in mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that I can agree with. Yeah. So I just think if that's the plan, we haven't got to wait for a plan. You do it. But if we give it them a deadline, then that is workable.
Mm-hmm.
Which I will tell you this. I agree with you. I believe that the Dominican public and those groups aforementioned earlier should really send a serious letter. And the next move would be to rally the people to, at that deadline, to let the government know that's it. But ultimately, my dear friends, it really depends on the people. Yeah.
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 That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Said we are going to wind up. So if you have maybe a 30 seconds, a minute or two to just give a final.
Yeah, like I say, bro, the only option in struggle, the only option you have to cancel fear is organization. Organization. Once you organize, struggle is successful. Organization. Peace and blessings, Dominica.
All right, thank you. And let me
All
just
right.
wish
Thank
the
you.
public a happy weekend and a blessed New Year. Wish everyone a productive New Year, a prosperous New Year, and wish everything works out
Yeah,
fine for
man.
you. We know we're in the struggle, but we have to continue the struggle in order for us to free ourselves from the present situation that we are in right now in Dominica. Because Dominica is actually sliding on the rest, Dominica is literally sliding. So we have to stop that, And I believe the New Year is a good time for us to, continue the hard work that we have started and to ensure that our country is on the right path. All right, so good night, everybody. Have a good weekend. Have a nice evening. Enjoy the New Year's
Yeah,
celebration
man.
on Wednesday, and you take care of yourself. Goodbye, and God bless you.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, brother.
All right, see you guys soon.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Your country needs you. Hope you realize our government is abusing its power and authority, and it is having adverse effect on the whole country. It is time for us to take a stand. After all, this is our native land. That is why I came back to sing, to expose the wicked things